Micah, take it away, man.
All right. Hello. Thank you guys all for coming out. My name is Micah Haworth. I'm here to talk about intro to hotel investing is what I'm calling it. So recently I purchased a hotel. So it's the first hotel I've been a part of. I jumped on the deal with a couple of partners, some of which have about 25 years of experience in the hotel industry. So it's been awesome being able to run this first deal with them and being hands-on in the management process. Part of the fun of this was a couple months into owning the hotel, we had our general manager quit on us without notice. So I get a text at like 6:30 in the morning saying that the general manager had quit, and she had a shift at 7 o'clock, and Brainerd is 2 hours away. And so I had to pack my bags and drove up to the property, and I lived at the property and ran it for 2 months. And I was the general manager operating the property until we found and trained in our new general manager. So a very fun experience. And I say that sparingly, but it was a great time really being able to be hands-on with the asset and being able to really get to know the market and get to know our customer base. I think in the long run, there's a lot of benefits from that experience that we were able to take into our strategy going forward. So overall, here I'm just going to talk about kind of the hotel industry in general, the differences from apartments, because I know a lot of you guys are more into the residential real estate side of things. So I just kind of want to talk about the differences between the two asset classes, advantages, and then common critiques a lot of people give when thinking about investing in something like a hotel. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of the underwriting and essentially how we select our markets and then how we select our assets. So when someone sends me a deal, what is the first couple things I think about? And then I'll talk a little bit about our management style and some of the key points or advice that we would give somebody when they're running something like a hotel where it has more staff and payroll and all this sort of stuff. And then how you can structure your own deal. So if you're looking on structuring a larger real estate deal and you want to work on it with other people, what are good ways you can put that together? So first off, my name is Micah Haworth. I'm 26. I'm married, got 2 cats and a dog. I have a large family. These are all my brothers and sisters and our spouses. I used to work in live event lighting. So a very big 180 twist from hotels and apartments and stuff like that. And I majored in film production. So I graduated college with a degree that was pretty much useless, and I had to figure a way how to pay back my student loans, and I used real estate to do it. So essentially what happened is in 2020, I ended up losing my live event lighting job. And that was because live events and COVID do not mix very well. And so the company I was working for ended up downsizing, and I was part of that downsizing. And so I had to get like a job renovating houses for a summer as I tried to find what was the next step for me. And one of the things that whole experience really shook me up and made me want to go into essentially diversifying income. I just, right as that happened, just read Rich Dad Poor Dad and was really getting into real estate. And so I started reading every single book I could find, every single podcast, YouTube video, everything, consuming as much as I could. And so I ended up reading about 50 books over the next year and a half, everything I could find about real estate. And in the beginning of 2021, I ended up buying my first family house. I did a live-in flip of that for about a year and a half, sold it, and was able to double the money that I invested into it. I used that money to pay off all of my wife and I's student loans in one fell swoop, and still had enough money to buy another house and renovate it. And so I was halfway through the second house renovation. I ended up getting into multifamily. I ended up joining a training program to help me understand how to underwrite commercial real estate. And so it took me a process of underwriting about 146 deals over the course of a year until I bought my first apartment building. So in March of 2023, I bought my first 12 unit, me and 2 other partners. I used some of the down payment money from that second rental, second single family house flip to put half the down payment down. And then I partnered with someone else to put the other half of the down payment down. And then I partnered with a third person to help renovate it. So I had a friend of mine who had his own general contracting company. And so he came in and offered his services at a discount to help us renovate the apartment. 2 months later, I ended up doing my first syndication. So a syndication is kind of when you're selling passive shares of an investment opportunity. So people have ownership of the asset itself rather than just a stock. It is ownership of the asset. They get the wealth generated as real estate. And so what I ended up doing 2 months later is I raised a little bit of money for a friend of mine's apartment deal. And we bought an 11-unit building. That's there at the bottom left. That's actually in St. Anthony Park. And then a couple months later is when we ended up buying this hotel. So how this deal came about is I had met Tom and Stephanie, my two partners on the property, about a year prior at a random networking event. And so we had connected. We had talked about how I was looking into capital raising and syndicating and learning more and more about that. And Tom and Stephanie had a mobile home park portfolio they were building because they had previously invested in syndications using their retirement fund and ended up doubling their money through the process of syndicating, investing passively in these syndications. So they're like, hey, these syndications are awesome. I'm like, yeah, I love syndications. I would love to syndicate my own deals. And so a year later, we randomly meet again at another networking event. And he had just found this hotel deal that a friend of his who works at Marcus and Millichamp sent him. This property had been in the market for about 6 months or so and didn't have a lot of movement. And he looks at over these numbers and he looks at this thing. It's called a STAR report. And I'll talk more about this later, but essentially comparing this property to the comparable properties in the area at about 13% occupancy deficit. So it was performing 13% under market occupancy. So I'm like, hey, if we get up to not over, but just get up to market, we're looking at a really solid return on this. And so that got me really excited. I'm like, hey, I've only done apartments, but this is something I'm really excited about. And the returns look really great. And so that we ended up putting in an offer on the property. And that same week that we decided, me and Tom and Stephanie decided to go after it, we met our fourth partner, who's Mike. So Mike Colosimo has about 25 years of experience managing hotels. And he joined our team first. We hired him as a property manager. And then we hired him during the due diligence process. But after working on the deal with him, it became very clear that we had a lot of the same alignment on a lot of our goals when it came to scaling our portfolio. And so we ended up bringing him on as a partner. And so it was the four of us, and then that's my wife as well. And we bought this 61-unit property. So a little bit about this. We bought it for $3.5 million, a down payment of $700,000, renovation reserves of $350,000. So this is part of the renovation. We also had a seller credit of $160,000 to help cover the roof, and then closing costs of $160,000 to help cover the cost, acquisition fee of $105,000, and then we ended up raising $1.5 million for the whole property. So when we are essentially our year 5 estimated valuation would be about 6.2. Our year 1 estimated cash would be about 18%. Which if we were to refinance in that third year, we would be looking at doing a 3.5 equity multiple, which is tripling investor money. So those are the projections we move forward with. Part of our value add plan is we're going to renovate the entire hotel, which is actually starting here in about 2 weeks. So we have the first contractor showing up to help do some of the demo on the second floor of the property here in 2 weeks. And so what will happen is we'll be doing all new furniture, all new linens, all new flooring, new paint, new ceiling, new lighting, new vanities, new bathroom, just whole thing. It's going to look completely different. We're super, super pumped. Getting the word out, sending out a lot of marketing to people, really letting them know more about it. So that is my current experience in the hotel industry. And so my partner Mike has been awesome as we've learned more. I've learned a lot from him and his years of experience. I am here to share with you what I've learned. I have one property, one hotel, so I'm not going to tout myself as some amazing expert in it, but I will share with you guys what I've learned so far. So why hotels? For me, hotel investing solves kind of a problem I have with residential real estate, and that has to do with low cash. So, with a traditional single family house, you buy the single family house, but after all the expenses, you typically end up with $150 to $300 a month in net. If you're going to be honest with yourself, and that means you're putting money aside for capital expenditures, you're putting money aside for repair and maintenance. And so after doing a couple of apartment deals, now we're seeing cash flow come in. Super excited about that. I'm like, oh well, is there a way for us to get a little bit more out of it? And then on top of that, there is a really large capital requirement for buying apartments because of and it has to do with something referred to as essentially the cap rate. So the way with with residential real estate, because of the large real estate component for it and the low cash flow, there is a really large capital cost associated with purchasing the property. But hotels are similar to apartments in the way that we have the large real estate component. So, you still get these wealth generators of real estate, but there is a lot more cash flow coming in because you're essentially taking it like, you're buying an Airbnb. So, single family house, to apartments, people like to go to apartments because of the stability of it. And a lot of people like the Airbnbs because of high cash flow. So imagine just taking that same mindset and jumping in a hotel and scaling up. You have essentially the benefits of the economies of scale when you go larger. So how are they similar? So these are what I call the four wealth generators of real estate. Every single real estate asset has. So they have cash flow. So the net money coming into your bank account every single month. The appreciation, the property going up in value slowly over time, which it has about 3% every single year. You got your depreciation or your tax write-offs, and then you got your loan paid out. So this is the tenant paying your loan off every single month. So you're getting closer and closer to owning the property outright. So these are essentially the things that the apartments and hotels and Airbnbs and single-family houses, these all have in common. Now, how are they different? So the hotels, they have a little bit more cash flow. They also are cheaper to purchase. And what I mean by that is that it is cheaper when it comes to how it is evaluated. So commercial real estate, instead of going off of what the property down the street sold for, when it comes to like single family houses, it's a three bed, 1,300 square feet, 1,300 square feet. They're similar. This one sold for this price. We can sell this one for this price. When you're going into commercial real estate, because the assets are so varied, it's harder to find similar assets, that are exactly the same. So, you go have a 50-unit apartment building, it's really hard to find the exact same unit mix. So what we've developed is something called a cap rate. And a cap rate is essentially the going rate for that income stream. Mathematically, a cap rate is a percentage, which would be the cash on cash return if you bought the property outright. But practically, the cap rate is used as the going rate of capital. Here, let me write it down. So you have 100 grand of your net operating income. So this is your take home before taxes and before. So they take the debt out of it. And so say you have a cap rate of 5%. Yeah, no worries. So the cap rate, so for apartment building, cap rates typically range anywhere from 4% all the way up to 8%. 4% are the most stable, and then 8% are more, and so if you were to do, 5% and divide it by, I think it's 5% divided by, put those two around, you get the idea. You would have a property that has a valuation of $2 million. Now, the exact same income stream, so 100 grand again, with a cap rate of 10%, into a property of $1 million. That's the valuation. So with hotels, the cap rates start at 8%. And so you're saying with just doing an asset class that is essentially viewed as risky, you're essentially buying the exact same income stream for cheaper, which is then of course your return is. And if you're paying half of what you would normally pay for an apartment building for a hotel, and you're still making. Yes, definitely. Does that make sense? I try to explain. Cap rates can be very hard to comprehend, especially if it's the first time learning about commercial real estate. So honestly, have any questions, let me know, or if I need another example or anything like that. But the best way to describe a cap rate, it is a multiplier applied to the income stream that represents like the risk and the value of that income stream. Because it's going to be, apartments are less risky than hotels, 100%. I'll admit that. Apartments are a lot less risky than hotels. So people are willing to spend more on apartments because they have a better guarantee that they get money. Whereas hotels, there's the sways of the hospitality market, and so there's going to be there's more risk associated with the hospitality industry, and so people are willing to pay less for that income stream because of the risk associated. And a couple of the other factors when it comes to differences is more staff, which that's definitely a component of it. So we have house cleaners, we have front desk staff, and we even have a general manager per property. And so there's definitely more of a staffing component where we're running a business, and then we lease it by the night. And so I say lease nightly rather than anything furnished or like that, because some people will do like furnished monthly rentals and things like that. That's considered residential, and so it's really the frequency of our tenants' turnovers that really determines the difference between like a hotel and an apartment. So this is what I consider the advantages. So first off is you have higher cash and cash return. Think of it just like the difference between an Airbnb and a house. The Airbnb, they're the same building, but the Airbnb is rented out by the night. There's you see these videos of kids on bigger pockets making thousands and thousands of dollars a month from their Airbnb side hustle, and they're doing really well. But imagine if you did that and you just bought 60 of them at once. That's a hotel. Then there's lease by the night. So this is what a lot of people see as a disadvantage to it. But really, we like to take advantage as much as we can by the leasing by the night, because we're able to more readily adapt to the supply and demand every single week. For example, if you own a property next to a large stadium and Taylor Swift comes to perform in that stadium, the rooms, everyone is going to want a room at your hotel. And so you can increase the price. You can double it, sometimes triple it. Now, this also works on the other end. When there's nobody there, we're going to decrease the rate as much as we can until people start coming in. And so that really allows us to try to squeeze as much revenue as we can out of a given market. We're really adapting to supply and demand. Another advantage is there's no tenants. In the sense, I say tenants rather than guests, because we don't have to abide by residential leasing laws. So if somebody stays at our hotel for 3 nights and then they refuse to leave, rather than evicting them, we call the police and they remove them, and then we move on. Because we don't have to abide by any of the leasing standards. There's nobody out there picketing about a night stay at the Hilton. It's a lot of this kind of controversy and politics that we get to completely avoid because it's just not our industry. What we provide is we provide short-term stays for guests. That is it. And then I kind of talked about the cheaper aspect of it. And I say cheaper, referring to the income stream itself. So comparing what you would buy an income stream for hospitality versus an apartment, it is a lot cheaper. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No, that's not what I'm saying. Apartments are definitely more stable. Now, they provide less cash flow because of that. Because of, again, it's house. So there's only so many, customers or so many transactions you can do in a month. If you have a 12 unit, there are 12 transactions, and that is it. Versus a hotel, 100% occupancy is 365 days multiplied by the number of units. So there's a lot more opportunity to get transactions. And that's why I essentially think that the higher cash flow compensates me well for taking on the risk. Any other questions so far? go ahead, man. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is much more hands-on. I'm going to jump to the next slide, and I'm going to answer your question. And go ahead really quick before I jump. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Cap rate. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And, because you're going all the way from, the most assured, asset class to, you can go all the way to like a tech company. There's this big varying level of risk and reward. And so real estate, 95% of millionaires made their first million investing in real estate, residential real estate specifically, not hotels. And so you can see that that asset class is really tried and true and is very, very robust. And there's a incremental steps you can take as you become more comfortable with that risk. And in return, you can get more cash flow for it. And that's a benefit I see in hotels is you're taking more and more steps towards a straight up business. A hotel is a straight up business, not gonna lie. And that's actually one of the things I talked about in the next slide. So these are, a lot of what people see as the disadvantages to hotels specifically. But short term, there's more staff. There's a variable, income because some months you could have 20% occupancy. Some months you may have 90% occupancy. There's a seasonality to it. So the property we have up in Brainerd, Brainerd is very much like a summer heavy market. And there's a lot more revenue during the summer and winter. And people like going up to Brainerd to go like snowmobiling and ice fishing. And so when there's no snow and no ice, it kind of hurts for quite a bit. But so the snow we saw today, I'm very excited to see some higher occupancy rates in these next couple weekends. So the comfort I'll give you when it comes to and saying as a business is that we're not buying these brand new assets. We're buying properties that have been running as a business for 10, 20 years. So when I look at a hotel to buy, I look at the last several years of financials. I look at 3-4 years of financials and I see the trends. And so if for the last several years, if it's been making $200,000, $400,000 a year, that gives me an assurance that, hey, I can see that the tide is already in this. And then when we look at our value add plan, what we do is we pull market data and we see how other properties in the area that are very similar to it are performing, which sounds very, very similar to if you're going to buy a single family house and you go on apartments.com and you check what other properties are renting for. It's the exact same process, and you just do it for hotels versus apartments. Now let's go into the different types of hotels. So hotels have a variety of types. It really has to do more with term length and amenities. So the ones you would know more would be the select service, limited service, and budget properties. So select service are going to be your Hilton Garden Inns and your Courtyards. These ones have multiple amenities, very nice properties, but they typically don't have like room service and things like that. So you'll have like a pool, you might have a restaurant, and it'll be a nicer quality of property. Then you jump down to limited service. So this is going to be your Americans, your Hamptons, your Fairfields, where you have like maybe one amenity. So you maybe have a pool, or you'll have breakfast rooms, pool, or breakfast rooms, and maybe a meeting room, something like that. And then there's your budget, which is like your bare bones. The goal of these properties is to be as cheap as possible. And so you have your days in, your travel lodges, your Super 8s, your Econo lodges, your quality. And these properties, they really pride themselves on having the cheapest rates. And so they may even be stripping, the rooms of small amenities like microwaves and stuff like that, just to get it down in price, or offering less options in breakfast. Then you go to your full service properties. So full service are going to be your Gaylords, your Ritz-Carltons, your Marriotts, your Hiltons, your Radisson Blues. So these are room service. They have golf courses, spas, pools, shopping malls sometimes. And these properties, what they are great at is essentially attracting more occupants. So for example, for a full service property where you have an event center, you can hire a full-time sales staff and have them call businesses and offer that, hey, why don't you host your annual sales meeting at our property? They have these different, income streams or amenities that they're running as separate businesses underneath it that all of them feed into room nights. And so, hey, you want to come to our golf course? We'll give you a discount on the golf course, but you pay for the room night. Or we'll give you a discount on the, we'll run at more of a break-even rate when it comes to the event space, but you're going to come hit the property. These ones are a lot more fun because you have more opportunity to sell. Now, they also have, this is the extended stay sector. And so this is actually going to be the most comfortable for someone who's used to apartments. So extended stay are your Embassy Suites or your Extended Stay America or Hilton Homewood Suites. So these are rented by the week or rented by the month properties. So which sounds a lot like an apartment complex, which it really is. And so people who come from the apartment sector, they would find it easier to adapt to something like that. If you want to take a step into the hotel industry, extended stay is a good way to do it. They also typically can run at higher occupancies if you are able to, if you're in those good markets, support it. Now, lastly, there is a new sector that's been coming out called lifestyle. So lifestyle, the best way to describe it, it's essentially the Airbnb model. So lifestyle hotels are typically smaller properties that have a lot of niche designs where they'll take, a given market and really heavy emphasis on the design in that given market. Make it South St. Paul themed, make it Brainerd Baxter Lakes themed, make it Glacier Park themed, that sort of thing. But they'll take essentially the support of the hotel model and add it to it. So you're having consistent cleanings, you have an established brand. There are some brands for it. I wasn't able to find any good examples. But essentially, I think lifestyle, there's a lot of good opportunity in there, especially for people who are starting with the Airbnb models or starting with smaller properties and they want to own everything themselves. They're not in the mindset where they want to syndicate. But you know what? I'm going to buy it myself, and I have like $200,000 to do it. Hey, let's go buy a lifestyle hotel. So we'll buy a 10-unit property, we'll renovate it ourselves, make it super cute, super automate the door locks, super automate everything, have all the Airbnb apps and all that sort of stuff. And you can really slim down the operations. For us, when we look at properties, we're now looking at properties. And the main reason for that is so that we can afford to hire a general manager. And so we have a general manager that we hire for every single property that oversees the entire operations. And then we meet with them on a weekly basis to stay up to date on what we need to do to make changes to the property. When you're looking at these smaller hotels, that they're just not an option because they can't afford the management. But when you're looking at a lifestyle model, you have this opportunity to essentially find this subsect of the hotel market where it's harder, where people are going away from being live-in landlords. And so instead of being a live-in landlord, you're going to put all the automations and you're going to put it into your lifestyle hotel, and you're able to slim down the operations and run a hotel that a larger hotelier wouldn't be able to do. So I think those are a lot of cool opportunities in the lifestyle sector for people who don't want to go larger and they want to do something that they can own more 100% of. So I think lifestyle is a good model for that. So how do you find a hotel? How do you know what's a good market for a hotel? And how do you know what's a good hotel to buy? So first thing, these are the first things to look at when we are evaluating a market. So when someone sends me a hotel, these are the first three things I check. First off, I need to see consistent population growth over the last 5 years. I need to see a population of at least 50,000 people or more. This gives me an assurance that the market will be there and that it is a robust hospitality market. If you're in a small town of like a couple thousand people, a slight breeze can knock that whole town over, and then you're left with a property nobody wants. So that gives me a lot of that. I'm also looking for a diversified economy, and a lot of these will sound very familiar. These are all very common metrics to track. So diversified economy, I need to see multiple businesses and economic drivers to bring jobs into that town. If there's one giant coal mine that supports the entire town, and as soon as the mine dries up, the whole town goes under, this isn't markets that we want to go into. Minneapolis is a great option for that because we have multiple Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies here to support our economy. Then we have hospitality drivers. The way I define this is anything that answers the question, why would somebody come and stay? So we need it, whether it's going to be an event venue, a giant lake, a ski course, a zoo, whatever it is, giant businesses. Business travel is great. If you have like large CEO headquarters of like Best Buy and things like that nearby, then there's typically a lot of business travel that comes to visit this business and things like that. So anything that really answers that question of why would someone come and stay? Then I look at the deal itself, and these are a couple of things. This is more of the your criteria, your crystal clear criteria when you're looking at a property. So for us, I already talked a little bit about size. So we're looking for properties that are 60 units or more. This differs depending on who you are and what sort of deal you're going after. So if you want to go after a lifestyle, then your criteria is, you know, that amenities, so making sure it aligns in that sector that you're looking for, whether it's select service, limited service, full service. Yeah. Then there's condition. So condition not only has to do with like, hey, does the roof need to be replaced? But this also has to do with, am I going to have to do extensive renovations to stay up to date with the franchise? When you own a franchise property, or when you buy a franchise property, it instigates an event where the franchise will come to the property and do an inspection. They will then give you something called a PIP. The PIP is the property improvement plan. So it's a list of items you need to renovate and update in order to stay up to date with the franchise standards. So you know how all the McDonald's all look the same, and then at the same point in time, they all jumped up to this like kind of hipster McDonald's? That is the PIPs. So they essentially, as you run a property, every 5 years, you'll be given a PIP. And when you buy the property, it's an event for them to give you a PIP. And so if I'm looking at a property and I see it's dated in the sense of, I know that I've seen updated Americans, you know, I know that this is going to be a property where I'm going to have to spend $8,000 a unit to fix it up. Additionally, I keep this in mind where, hey, if I'm going to look at say I look at a Super 8, Super 8 is not, you know, a franchise I want to be associated with, but if it's dated, I understand that, hey, I could then change brands. So keep that in mind when I'm looking at the numbers. And then there's performance. Now we get into the numbers. So these are the three main, essentially KPIs, performance indicators that hoteliers watch out for. So occupancy, ADR is your average daily rate. Essentially, of all the nights somebody stayed there, how much money did you make? And then there's RevPAR, which is revenue per available room, or out of all the possible nights, how much money did you make? So let me go back to the whiteboard again. All right, so if I have a 100-unit property and I want to know what is 100%, you take that by 365. And that gives you 36,500 room nights. These are total nights. Now, say I have 50%. This give me, which I wrote it down over here, 18,250. So this is the total room nights sold. Now, to get your ADR, all you do is say your property made gross revenue of $2 million. And so you'll take this divided by your 18,250, and then that will get you your ADR, which in this case is 109. So your ADR is based upon, you know, the amount of money you make of the nights you sold versus your RevPAR goes after this number. And so then your RevPAR check my 54.7. It's going to be $54.79. So why bother with all these numbers? This is where we go into being able to compare apples to apples. So similar to how we break commercial real estate valuations down to cap rates, so we can compare different size properties with different amenities, all this sort of stuff. With these metrics, we can compare apples to apples of properties that have different, you know, sizes, and so you can compare a 60-unit and a 50-unit property to each other. And this is where we jump into. So this is called a STAR report. So this is comps. This is how we pull our comps. So essentially, there's a company called CoStar, which has a section of it called STAR, which pulls all the franchises for all of their occupancy and revenue data. And so they report to us how much money they made and how many rooms they have. And we can then compare apples to apples of how different properties are performing. So this one is from the Baxter property. And so if you look over here, you see specifically the running 12 months. So that means from the date the report was run and all the 12 months prior. So that's great. I want to know what this last year did. And this report was run in December of 2020. So for 2022, my property right here performed at 48% occupancy. But then the comp set performed at 60.9% occupancy. And then you go a couple pages through the report, you'll find this, which is telling you which properties are pulling the data from. And so I'll look at these properties and say, hey, it's a Super 8, it's a Roadway, it's a Country Inn, Rapid River, Haworth. These are all properties that are very similar. This one does have one. But other than that, hey, we're seeing properties that, yeah, their units are kind of all over the place. But because we're breaking it down to metrics, we're able to really break it down to what's what. Micah. Yeah. 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 Yep. So the Baymont and the Rapid River are really close to, so essentially with this one, we're looking at Country Inn, Baymont, Super 8 are very close to the quality of the American. Super 8, again, yes, it is on the lower end. And so that's those things where you take into the factors into account and you kind of like drop or raise by a couple percentage of what you think. We liked it because the comp set, we liked it because we have because the Super 8 will screw it down, the Holiday will screw it up, and this is yeah. And so this is how you pull your comps. Yep. So it says 58 because I said we bought a 61-year property. So when we bought it, it has 58 units, but there are 3 of them that are live-in suites from the previous owner that we're converting. All right, talk about management. This is going to talk about a couple of the key factors that I consider when we're going into managing a property like this. And so it comes to KPIs, the team itself, and then communication. So first off is tracking the performance of the property. KPIs come in. So these are key performance indicators. So there's a metric that you look at on a weekly, daily basis to make sure that you can keep an eye on the pulse of your property. And so we already talked about 3 of them: the ADR, RevPAR, occupancy. Other things we look at is how many rooms a housekeeper can clean in an hour. We look at how many reviews we get versus like the average review ratings. We even look at how many people respond, how many guests come in, how many of them do leave a review, looking at some of those percentages and trying to get those up so we get more and more people to leave reviews. All those things give you a really great idea of how your property is performing so you can stay on the pulse. Because I don't live at these properties every single day. So I need to come up with ways for me to track the performance of it so I can stay on the pulse of it, even though I'm not there. So one of the things we just recently implemented is a weekly report. We're trying to streamline it too, because normally we've been just doing normal meetings with our general manager every single week. And so now we're even having the general manager fill out essentially a GM report that gives all the key stats that we want to track so that I can pull up on a spreadsheet and really track it over time. And then, we can look at occupancy rates and things like that. And then we can do tweaks of like, hey, let's try to, send out this mailing list, send out a mailer to try to get some more occupancy, or let's hang this post, see if it tweaks the rates. And you can start really streamlining each property, because there's a lot of factors that apply to properties in general, but then you need to streamline it for each specific property as you get to know it. So we have a software called Synexus that Wyndham, so American Inn is a Wyndham brand. And so Wyndham gives us the software called Synexus that sends me a daily report every single day of the previous day. So all the owners, me, Tom, Stephanie, and Mike, we get a report sent to our inbox every single morning that we can check that tells us how the previous day did. And it runs through all sorts of stuff. I can pull it up later if you want. Take a look at it. Yeah, a lot of numbers on it. What's up? So the main three are going to be the ones I said, 80, ADR, occupancy, and RevPAR. So that just goes, how many people stayed? How much should we charge? How much should we make? Some of the other things I will watch out for, because after running the hotel for 2 months, I got very familiar with the software. So I'll watch out for like out of order rooms or out of inventory rooms. So one thing that will happen sometimes is say you are not able to clean all the rooms in time for the guests to come. And so rather than, and so this is like, you clean all the rooms for the guests who are going to stay, but you have unbooked rooms that are not clean. And so what the general manager or the front desk will do is they'll mark those as out of inventory so that people wouldn't book them. Our goal is to clean every single room every single night so that if a party of 10 or 12 people came in, we would be ready for them. And so I watch that on the report. So if I see, 30 rooms were put out of inventory. Hey, did you guys do something yesterday? Did someone fall asleep? What happened here? And that's one of those ways that we're able to, again, keep an eye on their performance of the property from a distance. We use the software to really help us stay on top of those reports so that we're staying on top on a daily basis of how the property. Most of the time, I pull up the report, I look at it, everything looks good, we made some money, awesome, and I close it. But with the KPIs, there's a couple of those factors that we are kind of pull up those red flags to instigate us asking questions. Mm-hmm. So it's mainly a staffing thing. So, all your housekeepers have a certain level of skill of how many rooms they can clean in a day. And so plain and simple, all right, I had 20 people stay at this night. So I'm going to schedule, each housekeeper can do 10 rooms. And so I'm going to schedule 2 housekeepers to make sure I can clean those 20. But if you're really smart, I'm going to schedule 3 housekeepers. And then that way I'm going to give them all, a half board, but assuming I'm going to have some walk-ins that day. So making sure that you're staffing accordingly. Sometimes it has to do with somebody not showing up. Sometimes it has to do with, like, for example, right now, we are in a low occupancy season because it's the winter. And so we try to streamline things as much as we can, but it's a balance. We still need to make sure we have enough people to clean the rooms that are people stay in. Nope. Full-time. Most of them are full-time employees. We have some part-time employees. Yep. So we have 9, I think, including the general manager right now. But then when we get in the summer, we'll probably hire about 3 or 4 more. It will be seasonal. Mm-hmm. So the general manager, they are on it daily, every single morning. So when I was running the property, it was every single morning. I sit down at my desk. There's a software we have that Windows provides us called RevIQ that we can pull up and we can look at all the competitive properties, and you can personally select which properties you consider competitive. So we take out Rapid River and things like that. And so you're really able to pull it up really quick, open it up, see what all the your competitors in the market are pricing themselves as, and then you can change all the nights. That software also gives you so there's essentially an AI component to it. There's an algorithm component where it will track. You will tell it all the competitive properties, and then you'll give each of those properties a weight. So hey, Baymont is like exactly the same quality and brand as American. So we have a heavyweight on that, where we'll have a less heavyweight on some of the properties with a water park, or we'll not consider them at all, and we'll have a less heavyweight on like your econo lodges, things like that. But you can adjust that so the algorithm will automatically price things, but then you still jump on every single morning and double check. And then as the day goes on in the late afternoon, then you mark it down even more. Just whatever you need to do. It depends Or like say you started out the day where you had 20% occupancy for that night, and then you sold a bunch of rooms, and so now you're at 70% occupancy, so maybe you're going to raise the rate a little bit. It just kind of depends. But it's a constant daily, hourly thing where he'll pretty much jump on all the time, and then I'll jump on. And we also have bi-weekly revenue management calls with a Wyndham revenue manager who kind of helps us with the pricing strategy, looking ahead as we look at how many rooms we're booking, how much pickup we're having for the summer, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they typically only do the PIP every 5 years, but yes, they can. It's a franchise, and so they can tell you yes or no or whatever it is. And so if they want to come out and say that they're going to require everyone to spend $1 million just like that, then that's you're going to lose some franchisees who can't afford the capital improvements. Thankfully, we are doing it right off the bat. That's one of the benefits of when you buy, that you do the PIP immediately, so you really have several years before they'll even do anything. We had the unfortunate of buying the American right when Wyndham was pushing out the Pursuit Refresh design package. That they're updating all their properties to make them super fancy. And so their goal is to have all of them be that quality that I'd shown you before by 2025. Yep. So they don't change it that drastically every single time, because we're doing, what was it? It was like $600,000 worth of renovations on the rooms, and then we had the roof on top of that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah. Yeah. What's up? Oh, we pay for everything. So we pay franchise fees, so everything's included in that. Yeah. Okay. So the next component is talking about team. And so what I have to say about this is that I think it's really important for you to have a vision for the property and what you want the property to be like to work at, and what you want the property to be like to stay at, and then communicate that vision to your staff. One of the great things of us with our renovation plan is that we talk about everything we want to do with increasing the quality of the property, increasing the quality of the neighborhood, and how we want to interact with the community and find community partners to host events with and things like that. These are all things that really get our staff excited. So now we have several staff members who have been on with us since we first got the place. We're really excited about seeing every single day, seeing a new thing happen to the property as we're making slow improvements. And a couple of them when I was working there, who told me that, hey, this is my favorite job. I love this job. I'm like, oh, thanks. This is awesome. I love creating a good environment for people that they love to come to work every day, because people come to work for a paycheck and they want to do work that matters. So give people a reason to show up. And then last thing, and this is honestly all of that is communication. So I have a simple motto in my head of, if I have not clearly communicated my expectations to my staff, I cannot get upset if they do not do something the way I want it done. And so this comes with, like, for example, breakfast. How do I want, all the cinnamon rolls laid out? Which side do I want the sausage on versus the eggs? All this stuff, I essentially went in and I set everything up, then I took a photo of it, and then I printed it off and put it on the fridge in the kitchen. And so it's like I did that with everything in the whole breakfast area. So every single morning, all the staff needs to come do is they come in the morning, they look at the photos, and they set it up the exact same way. I even created like a bullet list and everything like that, so people won't miss things. And it's just one of those things where it's like the staff members don't see like that level of detail as an insult. They see it like, oh, thank the Lord. Now I don't have to guess. Like they want to do a good job, but if you don't tell them what that means, and so this comes with that. I've even doing like purchase requests, time off requests, all that sort of stuff. Streamlining communications, you're communicating with your staff. And then keep it open. So if someone has issues or they want to talk with you about something or whatever it is, let them have it be a good environment where they feel comfortable approaching. Because, we're running a business. So, So Wyndham has marketing, they do, but we can do as much stuff as we want on top of that. I actually talked about here. I'm going to talk about increased occupancy. There's a couple things we're doing right now. So first off the bat is group sales. So typically a hotel, 30% of their revenue is group sales. So that's, a hockey team comes to town and you book the whole team, or there's a wedding and things like that. Right now, what is keeping us booked is hockey, basketball, and weddings. And right now, I think in May and in June, every single weekend is almost fully booked, all from wedding groups. It's this crazy thing. Just we have this wedding venue in town that doesn't have any lodging, and so we're working on a partnership with them of like we're being the preferred vendor. And we haven't started the partnership yet. Yet May and June are both booked every single weekend. Another thing that we like to do is so asking for reviews. So simple thing, and so that comes with we made these little teepees that we put in all of our rooms that have a QR code on them. They can scan, and it says like, please leave a review. The number one way to help a small business, and then they can scan it. They can leave a review, and then we even have these little business card size things that have QR codes on them for the TripAdvisor link. And every single time someone walks out with a smile, you hand them the card. If they're not smiling, you don't hand them the card. And then one of the things we've recently started doing, and I'm going to send this out in the new investor update, so you guys will hear about, is we're doing mass email marketing. So the most recent is that we pulled a list, our revenue manager pulled a list of all of the permitted or the pulled permits for different construction jobs in the area. And the list is like 200 people long or 200 jobs long. And so we're going to send emails to every single one of those people and said, hey, I see that you have a job in Brainerd in the next couple of months. We would love to offer lodging for you and your team at a discounted rate, and then give the phone number and the email of our general manager. And so I sent out 173 emails via a mass email marketing engine to do that. Another thing that we're doing right now, and I'm waiting on, I just got the coupon code from Wyndham to do it, is that we're sending what we are calling a reactivation campaign. So what I did is I went into our booking software and I pulled the name of everybody pulled the email of everyone who stayed at the hotel in the last 12 months. And then I went 12 months before that and pulled another list. And I used Excel to cross-reference the lists, find the people who did not revisit. And then I'm sending them an email saying, hey, so sorry to miss you. The hotel is under new ownership, so sorry you had a bad time. Here's a 20% off stay coupon code for your next stay. Come see all the great changes we've made. Something like that, where you're then pushing that out. And so I got 2,000 emails that I will be sending that to. 20% off coupon, you come stay. Because one of the things we're dealing with on this property is we bought it with 3.5 star reviews. Hey, we know a lot of people have come into this property and they've had bad experiences. And so we need to let them know that that's the case. And then another thing we just did as well is we bought a giant banner, a 10-foot long banner that we're hanging on the side of the building that says under new management. Just any that's to help get the drive-by traffic. But to answer your question, we can do whatever we want. Wyndham does a certain level of marketing, and then we can do whatever marketing we want on top of that. I just make sure that I try to personally make sure that all the marketing materials are they look like the American marketing materials. Use the same colors, use the same fonts, and all that sort of stuff. Yes. So it's hard with depending on the service you're using. So because Google, they will stick to the address. They don't care. Expedia and TripAdvisor, and they will actually they're priding themselves as more being concierge services. And so with what we've done is both on Expedia and TripAdvisor, we've been able to get all of the old reviews removed. And so on TripAdvisor, we now have 4-star reviews. And then on Expedia, I think we have 3.5 because we had a couple of reviews come in that are all complaining specifically about the condition of the property. And so that's one of those things where after we fix it up, we can then take pictures and prove to Expedia that we fixed it, and they will go and remove the reviews that mention the physical condition of the property. So things like that, where those booking platforms are willing to do more catering to it. Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Mm-hmm. For liability purposes and such. So the way we have it is we have an entity that owns the hotel, and that's the entity we've sold all the shares for when we syndicated it. So everyone, we own, and then the owners own an entity that's a management company that owns our shares of that management. And that's kind of all there is to it. All the investors or whatever, some of them do personal, some of them do LLCs. It just kind of depends, and they own their shares however they want. And then we have a management company that owns our shares. So there's pretty much only two companies involved. So yes, so essentially we wrote up a contract between it's literally called Northern Lights Hospitality MGR and Northern Lights Hospitality, which is the entity that owns the hotel. And so every month that management payment goes to MGR. Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about structuring a deal, and this is what I'm going to call more of a generalized conversation when it comes to trying to structure any real estate deal or any large real estate deal. So the way I see it, every single real estate deal has these three components: it has the deal, the money, the hustle, or the work of doing it. So every real estate transaction needs a deal to buy. There are some people who just do the deal. They're brokers or wholesalers. So wholesaler will get a property under contract and they'll sell that contract. So they're literally just doing the deal and they sell it to people who need the money. Then there's the money component. So obviously you need a down payment to buy it, or maybe you need bank financing to buy it. So say you're doing a single family house, and so like when I did my single family house, I had to bring the money, I had to find the deal, and I did all the hustle. So I did everything. When I wanted to scale up, so when I bought that first 12 unit, I found the deal. I brought half the money. I had someone else bring in the other half of the money. And then I had someone else come in with the part of the work who was a general contractor to help us renovate it. And then I did the management. So I literally split the hustle in half, split the money in half. But it's different ways of combining this. But whenever you're looking at larger real estate assets that you're like, can't buy that, it's only for rich people. Well, if you want to do some aspects, these are the valuable parts. So if you want to know what value you can bring, can you go find a deal and bring it to someone else? That's valuable. And then you can have a percentage of the ownership of the property. When I did that 11 unit, so I had a friend of mine, so he owned his own property management company. He's a commercial broker in the Twin Cities. He had found this 11 unit apartment building, but the person who had offered to bring the money had backed out. And so he's like, hey, can you help me find someone to, put the money forward? We syndicated it. And I raised only like $150,000. And I directed those people. They invested in the property. He invested in the other half of the down payment. And then I got like 6%. So it's like, hey, I do not own 100% of any of these properties. What I like to tell people is I bought $5.5 million worth of real estate last year, but I only own $500,000 of it because I partner with other people. So some people, they just want to do the money component. They want to invest in the property. They want to get all the wealth generators of real estate, and they don't want to do any of the work. Totally fine. And it's a great way for people to invest in alternate asset classes without having to do it all themselves. And then there's the work component. So, hey, if you're willing to be the manager, to be the boots on the ground, to run the property, to be the general manager, things like that, these are all options you could do. And so, I can talk about different ways to structure deals if you guys are interested. So just definitely let me know. But I think the biggest thing to understand is that when it comes to any deal, you just need to find which aspect of the deal you can bring to the table, and you can buy yourself a large piece of real estate or even a small piece of real estate. That's it. Thanks you guys for having me out. I'll hang out here for Q&A. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'm open to talk about whatever. I'm pretty open book. So let me know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are some window, for example. Well, actually, one of the things we ended up doing is we hired a general contractor who's working in for us. So he's worked with Wyndham doing PIP reports before, doing the general contractor. So he has good relationships with all of it. But yeah, so everything needs to be Wyndham. But there's a certain level of flexibility, which he's helping us know that. Well, for example, one of the things he's saved us money on is in all of the rooms said that all the TVs have connected to the wall, which it costs $50 to mount plus what which multiplied by 61, a lot of money, several thousand dollars. And so he was like, I've done this before on several different properties. Don't mount it, set it on the desk. It's never helped. But the franchise will try to throw at you as many things as possible, because of course it's not their money. So they don't really and so it's up to us to really negotiate with them. So really it's always money. And guests do not care if it's guests will not pay $25. How does that work? So it's part of the initial investment. So we did all the calculations, we got quotes on all the construction projects. So we knew before we reached out to our investors. And that was all accounted for when it came to that were recorded.
So when the next PIP report comes out, you have to
refinance probably. But let's keep in mind that we kind of unluckily bought the property at that time. So we will have then a fully updated property. So there might be something to do with that, but it won't be. Oh, we can tell the investors. Thankfully, our hold periods are 5 years. So the goal is 5 years to either refinance and return all the investors' capital finance, or to sell it and just everyone. There's also an opportunity in that 5-year mark whenever you refinance the capital and all that. You could even buy people out who are wanting. If we can't force anyone to sell any of their shares. The only event where we could force someone to sell their shares is sold the entire property. Because on the event of the sale, the way that our legal structure works, the entire property is sold in the event of the sale. So,
are you able to 1031 exchange hotels with property?
Yes, you can 1031 exchange a hotel. I'm not an attorney. I will not do not quote me on this. I know when it comes to if somebody wanted to 1031, you would have to do essentially you have to make an entity to buy the hotel alongside the goal. So if buying shares is not the as whatever it is, and so essentially you buy different real estate
and all those partners.
Yes. Everyone has to do it. Essentially, all the company partners get helpful for a second entity owning. Now, everything will be bound together with operating, but I'm not in talk to them about that, but that's generally how it works. There is a large legal cost. I don't know this deal. But it asked by the tenant into it,
We really going to be smart to sell if you wanted to still partner with the same buy. But
then probably
the same capital gains that.
Yeah. People definitely 1031 into a people have that. Yep.
So,
Yep, we're doing a concept right now. So we will be sending it out for a week. And then we have to report. We have to schedule an inspection. People who don't know, a concept major study. So this comes with the depreciation. So I'm not a CPA, I'm not a attorney. This is generally how I am. So when you buy a property, this is commercial real estate, you'll take the value of the property minus the value of the land. Take the value of the property and then divide it into 27.5 or 35. Essentially, you take the value, divide it over 27.5 years, and that is the amount of the tax earnings you get every single year. Because the tax code views real estate as an asset that's falling apart. Because, hey, if you leave a building there, you just leave it there for 50 years, crappier than it did 50 years ago. But we get the benefit of real estate tax increases in value. So essentially, you get this write-off every single year. Now, what a concept segregation study does is it allows you to take that, to do a study, an engineer comes out and assesses the property and divides it up into parts. So say the roof just, is within the last 5 years of its useful life. It costs $50,000 to replace the roof. Then that roof, you can take that entire write-off. So the $50,000 in value, you can then write off in the first year. And it'll do that with every component, the plumbing, the flooring, the paint, the siding, the parking lot, all those components get broken up. And then you could then, anything within the last 5 years of its useful life could be written off. So typically for large deals like this, we're talking like $400,000 or $500,000 of the tax write-off, which in syndication is awesome, and that is the value we get off of investors. Hey, you have, I'm raising money for the deal and say, hey, you have a large tax point, invest in my deal. I'll give you a cost seg study. I'll give you $100,000. But it gives you all these write-offs. Now, you can only write, if you are not a real estate professional, you can only write on your capital gains, taxable income, taxes, taxes.
how do hotels get inspected?
So we do a fire marshal every once a year. We had one other inspection. I think it was like a general
I have a question on scaling it up to build or buy another property. I know you're syndicated that portion. If you were to buy another hotel in the next year or two, would you have that same management? Basically buying the next thing, or would you do it kind of as your individual? Kind of what is your goals going forward? How long you can plan?
So we discovered on this first property that we, so I have an LLC that owns all of my, so think of it as Micah. And so it owns my shares in all the properties that I and then for the hotel, we also made this MGR entity own like our ownership, the management company. So we did what's called a 70-30 split. So investors own 70% of the property, managers. So the 30% is owned by this MGR. And then I own a portion of the MGR. And so we decided that was like too much crap and stuff to deal with. So I asked a friend of mine who has about 400 or 500 units in the Twin Cities. And so and the way he does it is actually has a syndicated entity. So once you do the main trade, the property itself, he has his own personal property, and they have a management or syndication that doesn't have any real estate, but just paid the management. But that is how he structured it, and that is how we the benefit of that is essentially like, for example, we had a capital raiser come in the last of our and so that capital raiser, he owns a portion of the we had an agreement. And so with that, now I can't go buy another property whatever other own their shares directly rather than having to serve entity. So essentially, we have property LLC, and then we have everyone's personal.
I was gonna ask, do you ever, talk about depreciation?
Mhm.
You could, with an LLC, right, you can allocate depreciation differently than the ownership.
Mhm.
And, right, to the extent of your investment, right, because that's
Yep.
the basis. But have you done that where you make a deal with an investor? Obviously, it had to be above board and anybody else.
Yeah.
Where maybe one investor could benefit from that depreciation, you kind of over allocate to that.
So you have to negotiate. The way it's set up is that you allocate depreciation as much as you want. You can give 100% to one person and 0% to one. Obviously, I would definitely talk to any of the investors because if someone's expecting a certain amount of depreciation. But yes, 100%. You can allocate it from how I understand it. Talk to your CPA from what I understand. You allocate it.
I'm now mindful of the fact that you said, benefits are given, you can negotiate
Mm-hmm.
and, make adjustments.
Yeah.
Time, with the, tell me about the audit. Are there any audits done after, the?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the PIP has a timeline. So when we were given the PIP, each group of projects needed had like it was like within 6 months or within 12 months. And after that timeline, or right before that, whenever the franchise we did it, they'll send someone out to get done with it or the way they want, and then they'll sign it off. Another cool thing about that, so when we were given the PIP and part of the negotiation is that we were offered something called key money. So key money is essentially a renovation loan that the franchise offers to the franchisee who they give these PIP reports to. The cool thing about it is that you're able to, it's essentially a loan, you have interest, you have a payment, but every single year, a 10th of the loan balance just burns away, as long as you remain a franchise. And so over the course of 10 years, the entire loan will disappear. It'll just get burned up. But it's a way of incentivizing be a part of it. The crappy part about it is that they don't give you that money until after you finish the project. So you got to get the money first, and then they'll give you the money for it afterwards. So you kind of get a loan for some other money. Like, okay, thanks. Really, really helpful.
You pay interest on it?
Yeah, I think it's 5 to 8%. Yep. So think about like this: when people buy and buy a certain percentage of it, they own a certain percentage of the asset. So any money that comes out of that asset, it gets split up according to percentage. What we did on this deal, and we have this thing called a preferred return. So essentially, we promise investors. So when it comes to cash flow distributions, the first 8%. So until that investor is not the owner, the managers, the general partners don't get any cash. And so we promise that first 8% goes to them, and then after that, it's split up according to the percentage. Yep, it's just kind of a way of we're trying to stand behind. Okay, we believe this is going to perform this way, and so we're going to stand behind that, really back how cash flow because we know that we're going to move forward. Yep. Yep. And it should.
We got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. When it comes to, I can talk about my experience with syndication. So essentially, syndications. There's 2 types of syndications that I'm familiar with. So called a 506B and a 506C. generally what a syndication is essentially I pay a lawyer to fill out a bunch of documents that report my investment to the securities branch of the government. So I essentially report to the stock market that I'm selling securities, and then I will sell shares of the company. So there's two options of way you can do it. A limitation on who you can talk to, who you can sell shares. So there's a C and a B. 506B, the way I remember it, is B for buddy. So in a 506B syndication, you can talk to someone and tell someone whom you have a pre-existing relationship with. And so that relation, there's vagueness in it, and the person needs to be the term sophisticated. And in the term sophisticated, it is also vague. But generally, the idea is that you need to have a pre-existing relationship with the person, and the person needs to be able to determine whether you can't go to grandma and who doesn't know what's going on and have her invest in yours. That would be very, very no-no, and you and then there's a 506C syndication. One of the extra key factors when it comes to C syndication is that you are able to publicly advertise. So with the B, you can't, because you have to have pre-existing relationship. I can't post on Facebook, hey, I have this deal, I'm currently raising money. Can't do that. But in a C, you can. The downside with a C is it's for accredited investors only, which means an accredited investor is defined in the tax code as someone who has a net worth of $1 or more, or who makes $150,000 a year for, was it $250,000 a year for the last 2 years? Yep, there you go. And so yeah, 250, it was 200. 200 or yeah, 200. So it's 200 if you're single. If you're married, the household income has to be, and it has to be for the last 2 years. You expect to make it again. So it's very high net worth individuals who have $1 million in assets or who have a large income. So, which they're great people to work with for sure, but I like to see some opportunities for what I call A investors. So not all those people have. Not all those people have. Yeah. So for example, as I'm talking about like publicly speaking, if I was still raising money for the American deal, I could not talk to you guys because that would be me, Mr. Public. And so there's these, and again, components with the syndicate. And one of the things I do know is that I've been going to friends of mine to raise capital. So it's like you're not allowed to raise capital for a specific. So I can't tell someone for every $50,000 you raise, you get sponsored. That's not legal, unless you're like I think determines a fund of funds like that. All these other rules. I'm not everybody. Just not everybody. But yeah, there's some legal paperwork. But honestly, it's relatively simple. Just have a good attorney that you talk to.
Are you looking for deals?
Yep. I'll walk one.
Where's that at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is it. Yeah. One of the things we're really looking at for each deal is we want to look for rather than limited functions. Part of that is our team has a lot of skills in that area. Mike, 25 years of experience, and he's the campus director at this place. So he ran like the events and the food and beverage portion of Mr. Plate. He has a lot of experience in that area. I used to work in the live event, and I used to do a lot of corporate events. And so I saw the inside of God knows how many ballrooms all across the country. And so we both have this great amount of experience in events, especially specifically corporate events. So that's one of those things we're looking to bring our experience to the table with those properties or full service properties. The benefit for those is that you have more ability to hire staff to do like a sales member who is on the phone dialing and trying to get corporate clients to come in who then bring room nights. But that's one of those tools we have.
team, I should say.
Mhm. Yep.
You know,
So the idea is, it'll probably be a while before the acquisition scheme gets hired out, so to speak. But essentially every single property we buy, we're going to get a gentleman on it, and then they have to staff part of that team. So whether it's you have a food and beverage director, not adults, and the restaurant, the events space, things like that. Outside of each property, we'll probably end up getting a regional. So if we buy 10, 20 hotels over the course of 10 years or whatever it is, we would hire more staff. So really watch those numbers.
Is, the residents of the property.
Yep, there are hotel properties. Yep. Yep. So when we first looked at buying the property, when we had first met Mike, he had owned some property management company that he worked with. Now, almost of it was all like retail and warehouse space, but he had also ran hotels before he did commercial real estate. And so we originally just hired him as a property management company, but then in that process, trying to do my due diligence, I then got quotes from 3 or 4 different properties. The fees are very similar to what you see commercial real estate, and so it's like 3.75%. And then payroll. But if you were to include payroll, then typically it's like 8%. Yeah, definitely. Which is a great option. Like, hey, you want to go find a way to buy a hotel? You don't want to manage it? Find a management company, hire them, they'll run it for you, and then you have to manage it. So, but we decided to go on properties because we had a attorney, so we were starting on, which allows us to be vertically integrated. So that means if some housekeeper is not touching the sheets correctly, I can go to them as, hey, I'm your employee. Let's do this the right way. Gives us a lot more control.
No, we're over time, but yes.
Yeah, question.
What's up?
I apologize if my ears were switched off. Are there any factors that determines the ROI, or is there a set guideline specifically for it?
Like you have standards for what we're looking for. Yep. So we'll look for. We like to see a minimum of we look at, and then. So yeah, what's up?
So you investors, okay? You want them to know how soon they can.
Oh, how soon they can get their investment back. Yep. So what we tell everyone is, when you invest in a syndication, it is until the meaning that you have bought a share of property, so it's very hard to try to sell it from. As far as how soon people get it back, so they'll start seeing. The goal is within the first year we can start making distributions. Right now, for example, we are holding off on distributions because we're about to start renovating the entire property, and we're going to be going through a period of low occupancy during that. We're trying to hold everything. We have a lot of bookings in the summer, and so we're very excited for the summer, and we're trying to get ready for it so we can start higher rates for this summer space. Like for example, Super 8 in Brainerd currently set a floor for their rates, so their rates will go below. I think it was $160 for the entire summer. Which I think is a little bonkers, but I'm like, hey, Super 8 has the donuts to do that. I think with a newly renovated property, I think we go with it. On top of that, we're seeing a lot of pickup. So we're currently like $30,000 or $50,000 ahead of where our previous owner was last year in book. And we're continuing to see healthy pickup, especially in the summer. We're seeing a lot of healthy pickup in September. And so question, the goal is after with that summer revenue.
What's that with an average rate?
So right now, the renovations, our pricing strategy has changed because of our low rate. So right now we have 3.5 star reviews on Google and on Booking.com and Expedia. We fixed TripAdvisor, which is great, and we're working on fixing Expedia to get the new rooms finished. Google, they do not work with people. So you need to just pump it out. Whether it's I'm texting all my friends to leave reviews or whatever it is, like it's done. I'm noticing that. People who would never stay at my hotel can do it. My family. Yeah, dude, 100%. Just Google American Max possible review. Do it. 100%. Yeah. Oh yeah, great. So right now we're essentially marking ourselves in line with Super 8 when it comes to our rates. So it's $70 is typically. We're not proud of it, but the thing is that we the goal right now is our whole strategy is we need to get as many people as we can and give them good experiences with positive reviews. So by the time we finish, we now have better reviews and a new product. Because right now we have it's still in going along with it. So part of the renovation is like getting new showers. So it's really right now it's we're trying to price lower so we can get people in the doors, get as many products as possible, hand out QR codes, put the little PP QR codes on it, all this good stuff. Great. Thanks for having me out, guys.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. How many you guys got? 6 more minutes. But it's late. We got like maybe 5. First one is do Wednesdays or Fridays typically work for so Wednesdays. So we do this every third Thursday of the month. And first time next March, we are at this next month. So we gotta flip it to you Wednesday or Friday. So Saturday. Or sorry, Wednesday.
Today is Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we'll send an update to calendar, right, and all these other things. And then how many of you guys are new first time here? Sweet. Okay. Cool. So we're gonna give you like 30 seconds to 10,000 foot overview of kind of what we do and why we do it. So third Thursday of every month, except for the next month, we do this. It's what we start going this year. And it's a little bit of this, right? It's education, talking about real estate investing and whatnot. A lot of people who are on the path of financial independence do real estate investing. But we wanted to do it a little bit differently. So instead of just having the education point here, we do a smaller accountability group. People in smaller groups of 4 to 5 people who are in similar paths. We give them tools like a vision exercise, habit tracker, things like that. And then they kind of self-regulate, self-organize on their own on when to meet, how often to meet. The whole point is, Stacy and I have been in a lot of different groups from, free groups, very, very expensive groups that are all the same thing, where you get with people who are doing the same thing, set goals, and then meet regularly and hold each other accountable to them. So that's kind of what we wanted to do. Right. So, and we are adding a little bit of layer to that for everybody who's been here since September. We launched online, which is Circle.SL. So we'll send out a link, but
we'll resend out, so the idea is that we will track you guys to see Facebook group. This is more of a private just platform where we can post our resources, so we can all set in to get and we record that. We recorded this, we'll link out to recordings. So it's a lot easier for us to manage and know what past presentations are all in one spot. Then it's really neat for us as a community that the broader community, like the smaller circles, that like the whole local community that attends here. Again, we want to celebrate wins, we foster community, the way that each other, and the way that do that platform. So, Mike made an investment in the tool for us, so today some of you guys to have you join that. And look for that, and you'll see
Questions on any of this or the program that went out of program? The community in general?
yeah.
I'm one of the circle members.
Yeah, I mean, your community, but we just like really quick, if you want to share like how we're
No, it's kind of nice. We meet with them, jump on a Zoom call, we go over the goals we have. So we had the last week of how we did, why we didn't do it, give each other. They're not always to set any goals like those priorities, like what do I need to get done? I go find getting the right.
We typically give a very pretty about a 15-minute. We'll send out more about it. There is a QR code where you can approach even the last one. Love the investor question. Sorry, I have no idea. No pressure, but it's just why we started this is to create that in-person community and that social accountability and
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people come to these events or read the books or listen to the podcast, and it's just like information overload, and then 10 years later they're done. Right? So like, Stacy and I have both been in accountability groups for, I mean, I've been doing it for 7 or 8 years, and it makes a whole lot of difference once you start getting with the same people and you actually start talking about taking actions versus just like downloading the info. And so it's free, it's a good community, and it's a good resource to actually start with practice.
And it's good to, rather than look at the entire picture, is to kind of what is the next step. Now, for me, when it comes to getting in real estate, I think education, reading every single book. And what education does is it gives you options. And so that you can find the best option for your situation, for your lifestyle, for you. Some people, what you want to do is look for that for unfair and you go. Like you have certain connections, maybe those are all of us. Like, hey, I've worked with like thousands of offers, and maybe like this is it's different for everybody. So education is key, gives you direction, make decision, and then come up with.
Sweet, cool, and we will send out information on what the next handful of meetings are. We're doing due diligence in March. House hacking in April. Property management. Oh, and we do. I'm trying to convince my very overpriced, not overpriced, to come in and talk to us about taxes. But yeah, that'll be on it, and then capital raising will add to it since there's a lot of interest in that. I mean, he probably saves me a boatload more than I pay. Yeah, but there's a lot of education. Yeah, cool. So we'll send that out. So you got the next 4 or 5 months of content, and then we'll send out those links too as well. So Cool, thank you guys. Yeah, oh, come on, bathrooms over here.